All right, we are live in effect. Justin Fox, Marc-Andre Coulombe. I don't know what day it is. It's kind of day 5 for videos, but technically I think it's about day 7 in the Rays, maybe somewhere
Yeah,
around
maybe.
there. So I threw day 7 up on the intro here for the video. Anyways, everyone watching, Justin Fox, Marc-Andre Coulombe, Justin Fox from Backers, Marc-Andre Coulombe from Veritas Terra, Chief Corporate Affairs of Veritas Terra. We are discussing the Trees of Lives initial backers offering. So, Trees of Lives is a fund that is raising capital to do a whole bunch of cool things, which we'll talk a little bit about. Saving the world, essentially. They're raising funds exactly on the backers platform, using the very platform that we built that enables small businesses or different entities to raise capital, raise funds, utilizing both sort of the regulatory framework of whether it's the startup exemption, crowdfunding exemption, OM exemption, friends and family, accredited investor exemption, whatever exemption it is here in Ontario, across Canada. They can use that exemption on our platform through the use of blockchain, sort of crypto tokenized assets. They can sell units or shares or equity in their business to retail investors, which is a novel concept because prior to this did not exist. As much as people might think, oh, I can buy shares, you can buy shares in a company that's public on, say, the TSX or New York Stock Exchange, but you cannot, prior to this, you were not able to purchase private shares or shares in a private company unless you were an accredited investor. Typically, minimums of $5,000, $10,000, and you had to be sort of top 1 or 2% of investors with high net worth, multiple millions of dollars in assets. Now this is opened up to everybody, right? So now you can invest as little as $100 on the Backers platform in various number of opportunities. And today we are talking about Veritas Terra and their Trees of Lives fund. So that's sort of your intro, Mark. So Mark, you're with Trees of Lives or Veritas Terra. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, let's refresh everyone. It's Monday. Let's bring everyone back into the fold. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and sort of what you do with Veritas Terra, and then kind of what Veritas Terra does, and then we'll jump into the funds a little bit. We'll talk. Yes. Obviously, we're gonna go through the Veritas Terra website in a bit, but yeah, who are you? Who are you? Who is Marc-Andre Coulombe?
Who am I? Well, as you said, I'm Marc-Andre, Chief of Corporate Affairs for Veritas.
Who am I? Yeah.
Who am I? So, I'm with the company since 2020. Just as COVID breakout, I started with the company. The company obviously exists since a bit later than this. We were created in 2015, so the company is a bit older, but in 2020 when I jumped in, my role was just to explode the company, in a really positive way, to just skyrocket the company. So I work with the CEO, Martin, and all the team, the executive team that we've built over time. So we went from 6 employees to about 44 right now. So, it's very a rocket. So it's very good company, very dynamic. We want to change the world, but we want to do it fast. We're facing very big challenge, very big climate challenge, and we want to have propose a solution to the world that will be, as big and bigger, that the challenge we're facing. So what I wanted to do is to go through the Veritas Terra website. I want to give a context of, people are not invited to invest. They need to do their own research and see for themselves if this is good for them. But before we jump into Trees of Lives and what Trees of Lives is, I just want to talk today about Veritas Terra, what the company is doing, and what's behind Trees of Lives, what's the company behind Trees of Lives, the different business model. I wanted to talk a little bit about this, and after that, we're going to jump into the blog of Trees of Lives, We're going to talk about carbon offset. We're going to talk about biodiversity offset. Obviously, I'm not the expert in all of the thematics of trees of lives. However, we're going to have a little bit of what we're doing, and then because this is not only today, because there's like interview with a lot of expertise, like within the Biodiversity team. We're going to talk to the expert in biodiversity. We're going to talk to the expert in carbon offset in the following days and following weeks. So I'm really pleased today to explain, like what's Biodiversity a little bit, and then what's the biodiversity and carbon offset. So that's what we are going to talk today.
Perfect. And as you were doing your little intro, I was sharing it. So everyone else, check it out. Obviously, you're watching it live. Mark, sorry, I just sent, so you can send it over to Martin, a link so they can all watch it. I just sent you a quick email. So
Okay.
there we go. So cool. So we're going to dive into the website, obviously talking a little bit about Biodiversity, a little bit about where they're going. It's kind of cool that you said, within a few short year and a half, 2 years, you've grown it or been sort of the catalyst to help grow Biodiversity from, you said 6 people to now over 40 people. So that's awesome. Which means that there's a lot of good things that are happening. You guys have raised money already, and now through the Trees of Lives fund, we're able to help you or facilitate you raising funds from a different pool of investors, people that wouldn't typically be able to invest in previous opportunities with anywhere. Like I hope people understand this. Prior to backers, you were not able to invest in private companies, period, unless you were the family member of the founder or you were an accredited investor. So 99% of the population prior to the platform that Backers has created, you were unable to invest in opportunities like this for as little as we're offering the $100 minimum investment. So pretty huge, pretty amazing. And then once you do invest your investment, and this is how we're able to facilitate this and make it so cost effective and make it accessible to everyone, is that not only for the issuers, the people that are looking to raise funds, obviously it's accessible to them as well, and it brings that open accessibility to everyone, but also through the use of crypto, or essentially people are familiar with cryptocurrencies, but the large majority of cryptocurrencies are not actually currencies. They're more like a crypto share or crypto stock, or as people would call them, a security token that represent the ownership in that business. So Ethereum or ETH is actually more like a security token than it is a cryptocurrency. And a lot of these platforms, they've issued these tokens or these securities out in the world. What we're doing here in Canada to start is we're allowing companies to now mint their own security token or crypto stock, cryptocurrency for that matter, if it makes you feel good, mint their own cryptocurrency that represents the security of their business. So the stock or share or equity, or in this case, partnership units in a fund, and it could be real estate, could be any type of project that you're looking to do. You can now use the Backers platform to mint those tokens and sell those tokens to everyday investors. And then they hold those tokens on their digital wallet on the Backers platform. So I'm done selling. Mark, we're going to talk a little bit about Biodiversity. I'm going to put the share in here. Let's see if I can get this the first time. There we go.
There we
All
go.
right.
So
Biodiversity, let's jump right in.
If you click on what we do.
Yeah, give me 1 second. What we do, yeah.
Yeah, so mine restoration. So we're going to go through mine restoration, forest landscape restoration, national development, research and development. We're going to go through all this just so you have a sense of, like who we are, where we're coming from, and what's our expertise. So in 2015, the expertise of Biodiversity was built around biotechnology, around the mining restoration. So the mining restoration to give you an example, some company will exploit some minerals and they will have to cut forest. Okay, they will have to do this in order to do an open pit and then like take all the minerals they need to take. And then once this is done, you've end up with the piles and piles and piles of dead sand and rocks and stuff like that. And sometimes we'll have very hard restoration condition. So some of the rocks will be acidic. Some of the rock, will lack some any organic component. So it's not, like it's not soil. You'd buy on the market. Like to do your garden. It's not very good to grow on it. But with our biotechnology, we are able to grow a forest. Like we kickstart the process to grow a forest, a natural forest, back on those lands. So that's how we started. And to understand, where we're coming from, we are uh, we were working with a legend, André Fortin. André Fortin, who restored since the 80s, the 1980s, all the hydroelectric um, project, and it was on bare rock, and he was able to regrow boreal forest using mycorrhizas, using bacterial, and using advanced seedlings methodology to grow on those rocks. So that's how Vericera started, and we're still doing it, and we're still enjoying, getting more and more and more of those clients. However, this is only 1% of all the degraded land in the world. All the degraded land in the world in the mining and oil and gas is only 1%. 99%, 99% of all the degradation in the world is either overexploitation of the land, slash and burn, clear cutting. So those kind of degradation, and this kind of degradation is advancing pretty fast. And right now we have a liability of 2 times the size of Canada, 2 billion hectare of degraded land, and that is very terrible. And every year we're adding England as a area, of new degraded land, and that's why we have created IFLR. RFLR, integrated forest landscape restoration, is a system where we go on those degraded land and we join all the impact investor as well as the landholder that don't have the mean to pay for the restoration of their land. And that's how you can get in. Like if you feel that right now the world is not going in the good direction, and you feel like you can't do anything, and that the government is not doing anything to solve those big problems, from today and now on, the situation is changing. You have the power with as low as $100, to participate and help in this big project to restore the whole world. And the RFLR unit, integrated forest landscape restoration, is doing all that. Justin, I'd like to go to the website, then to the next one, which we call the international development. So if you go on what we do, yeah, international
International
development.
development.
Yeah. So what is international development and why we care about this? Because even though, like with the impact fund, we can restore some land and produce commodities and produce natural restoration and generate some conservation of natural forests with the RFLI unit, it's not even possible to do that everywhere. There are some places in the world that the land is so degraded, the people are so poor, or the countries and themselves have so poor commodity value chain, etc., that they can't even afford to install the RFLR business model unit. And this is where we jump in with the international development. So we work in the international development. with the government, with grants, governmental grants, to restore very degraded lands over there. We don't make any money out of this. We have grants, and with all the money we receive, we do as much as possible restoration. So this is very important work, because in those places like Haiti, right now we have international development project. Once will be there for 5, 10, 20 years from now, we will have built project after project after project after project, places where we can grow more and more and more and more forests, and then be able to implement all those RFLR units, even in 80, where it's not possible for now to do. If you click on the what we do, there's a last section. So research and development. So research and development, if we would not do research and development, this will not be possible. Why? Because like, traditional restoration is good and it's working. It's just that the rate at which we degrade the land right now is too fast, and we need to do R&D to accelerate the process of restoration. And like, this is why we invest up to 25% of all our profit, 25, one fourth of all our profit, toward R&D, to be able to restore more and more and more and more land the fastest way as possible. So that's the heart. That's the heart of what we do. That's the heart of Various Terra. So to understand the Trees of Lives fund, the Trees of Lives Limited Partnership Fund, you need to understand the philosophy, the value, who we are, the team. So the heart and soul of what the company created, Trees of Lives. So Justin, if you can please, I jump in the Trees of Lives. What we're going to cover today in the Trees of Lives fund blog is biodiversity offset and carbon offset, and why they are so important in the model we're developing. So again, Trees of Lives, you can click on the link, and then you jump right in Trees of Lives website. And if you go to the blog, so right now,
Which one did you say? Sorry.
the Jaguar. So this one, the growing market for biodiversity. So biodiversity, why the biodiversity? Although biodiversity market is not as I'd say mature as carbon offset. Okay, so biodiversity offset is not a market that is mature. However, it is very important for the future and the sustainability of the project to understand. So right now, the market size of the biodiversity offset credit is about 78 to 90 billion dollar per year globally. So, but this market is growing more and more and more. Right now, their biodiversity offsetting policies are used over 33 countries and have contributed to approximately 8.3 million hectares of ecosystem. So how does it work? So it is important to mention that biodiversity offsetting must be seen as a last resort that should be only used when the developer make every effort to avoid and reduce the environmental impact. So biodiversity offset is not something we should run toward. Every project builder should find ways to reduce their impact on biodiversity. Okay, period. So right now we're facing 70% of biodiversity loss since the beginning of the industrial revolution. So that needs to be stopped right now. We need, as a society, as a human civilization, we need to stop the forest. We need to stop, reduce biodiversity. However, we still need to do some development of some project. We still need to have like some energy project. Still need to have infrastructure. We still need to have schools and universities, and like the buildings we need to run our societies and economy. So when we're facing, like project that needs to go forward, we need to think about biodiversity, um, and how we calculate that. So we calculate the biodiversity with the natural capital. So natural capital represents the stock of ecosystem present in a given territory. Like financial capital, it generates interest, and the interest generated by natural capital is called ecological service. So this ecological service is the benefit generated by a restored ecosystem in natural forests. Ecological service are numerous and includes tangible benefits such as wood, food, medicinal extract, and can even be, like reducing the contaminant in the air, water purification, flood reduction, landscape aesthetic, reduce greenhouse, etc. Everything that gives a service and that we can count and monetize or not are natural capital. This is very useful because if we don't calculate our economy in natural capital and only in finance, what we're going to see is depleting of all the nature we have. But if we start to turn, and start to calculate everything, all our economy in terms of natural capital, now that's when we'll make sure we will have we will secure the future of our children and grandchildren, because this natural capital, if we look toward making interest over the natural capital, it means that the earth, the value of the planet earth, will grow year after year after year instead of decreasing like it's doing right now, trying to make money, out of project that gives money to the investor, but remove, value over the whole planet. So to increase in biodiversity goes hand in hand with greater resilience, making developed site resistance to hazards such as extreme weather events due to climate change. Right now, we're facing, a lot of effect on climate change. This is due to, reduce of natural capital. So increasing natural capital will just reduce all the extreme weather event and all the climate problem that we're facing right now. So where do we start? So we have a case study, the Sinchiroka project. So the Sinchiroka project in the Peruvian Amazon covers 5,100 hectares divided in five types of intervention: the agroforestry system, the silvopastoral system, the forest plantation, the assisted generation, and the forest protection. And to understand why we're able to generate money, generate natural capital, and have social impact, that's the key. Understanding those five systems is the key to understand our model. So what is agroforestry system? Agroforestry system are a system that grows commodities within forest, basically. So every time you mix some fruit trees with timbers, with annual crop, with some plants that will be nitrogen capture, anything like this are agroforestry system. Those systems are very expensive to put in place, very, very expensive. However, when you allocate the good capital toward those systems, those generate much, much more than you first invested. And that's the type of investment. If you decide, and if you decide that Trees of Life is a good product for you, agroforestry system are the backbone, behind the system. Why our system is generating financial value. Silvopastoral system is very important too. Why? Because there's so much community that rely on the bovine industry. So the bovine industry is very, very toxic for the environment. Right now it's generating a lot of greenhouse. You more and more and more, it's known that like eating beef, is emitting a lot of GHG. It's polluting the water. It's doing a lot of bad stuff. So silvopastoral system, mixed with agroforestry, is very important to add resilience over those systems, to make sure at least that all the meat, uh, all the animals we grow, we raise for meat, is at least, capital natural neutral. That it's not destroying the planet, but it's at least neutral or negative. Forest plantation is also very important. Why? because forest plantation is somehow lower investment than agroforestry system, but it gives a lot of yield. So forest plantation is very important, but we're not doing tree farming. And so what's the difference between our forest plantation and tree farming? Is tree farming you only planting tree for hectares and hectares and hectares just to cut them down and clear cutting them. That is not what we're doing at Verdestera. So the reason why you see all of those systems is because they're in our system. There are a mix of them, and that mix and a well balanced mix of all those systems makes what our systems are resilience. We don't use any monoculture. We use polyculture with at least 2 to 3 and then growing numbers of species, so that our system resemble more and more the forest and the natural forest. And then the assisted regeneration. And in this system, we're not trying to get any type of commodities. And this is the backbone of how we generate so much natural capital with our system. Why? Because right now there are primary forests that exist. So they're rich, they're already existing, but there are also secondary forests that exist. So forests that, like have been depleted of all their interesting timber. So what we're doing in those systems is we're enriching, those kind of forests with trees, indigenous trees that will give back the value, the natural capital value of those projects, but they will not be for harvesting. They'll only be for natural forest regrowth, so that as we grow commodities, zero deforestation free commodities, we also grow natural forests. So as our model advances, we're generating more and more and more and more of natural forest. And the last but not least, the forest protection. So as I said, there's primary forest that you just don't need to do anything with it. It's already perfect. It's already at its best state. However, if we don't do anything right now, those forests, those primary forests, are being cut down, are being slashed and burned, are being, are disappearing in front of our eyes right now. And we need to do some forest protection. We need to allocate some of the profit generated by those systems to forest protection, so that those forests already existing will still exist in 20, 50, 100 years from now. So, what's our estimated increase in ecosystem quality for each type of intervention over 20 years? 20% agroforestry system, 20% civil pastoral system, 20% forest plantation, 10% assisted regeneration, and this will be, and uh, the remaining will be for protection. So there's no quality gain, as I said, in terms of protection, but because those forests are already at their maximum value. However, those protections are very important because you can get negative, if you don't care of them, and that's why protection is so important. So just to give you an estimate, like what's the pre-value of a project, an estimated value at years 30, and the natural capital gain. For agroforestry system, $52,000 per hectare, but this will generate $281 of value, and natural capital gain 229. So then you can addition them together. So financial plus non-financial. So you see that as you invest in those systems, you generate more money, but you also generate more natural capital. So it means that the value of the planet Earth increase each time you invest in those kind of system. Same thing for civil pastoral. As I said, like the civil pastoral is generating less money, is generating less capital gain. However, it is important because it's a very important part of the economy of those developed country. It's part of their culture. It's part of how and why they live. So it's very important to respect those communities while we are trying to move them from civil pastoral to agroforestry. It's still important to include those kind of model to them. So forest plantation, you see, same about investment. and you see the return and the natural capital return. Assisted regeneration. Now you're not producing a lot of financial value, increase in financial value. However, you're producing natural capital gain, and this is a very natural capital gain, very important for the nature, because this is your natural forest. We need to see more and more and more forests, because those forests are the one that will decrease the impact of climate change. And then protection, this is also important. So the biodiversity gain calculated in quality hectare is a very important indicator we have in our Sinchiroka project, pilot project. um, and and those are, like, very important to go through. So if you want to have someone, like, that will be explaining those things in more profoundly, more technical, we're going to have Benoit Limoges, that will be coming in couple days, maybe next week, and we'll be explaining all of this biodiversity gain that we are facing. So, Justin, if we go to the carbon offset, and then that will be the last subject we talk about each together. There we go. So, carbon offset. Carbon offset is an industry that is much more mature than the biodiversity offset. The carbon offset can be tricky, because if you're only aiming at creating carbon offset, you might want to grow some trees, some plants, whatever, just to generate and capture carbon. That is okay, but you need always to have in mind the quality of those carbon offset, and this is always backed by biodiversity generation. But let's say a project manager is respecting the biodiversity offset, the production of natural capital. Let's take into account is going to do this. Carbon offset at this point is very good. Why it's very good? Because it's it's a measurement. It's a tool to measure how much carbon we're getting back to Earth. From the air back to Earth, through the canopy, through the forest. Um, so right now, our choice can have an immense impact on our carbon footprint, whether it's flying internationally, producing raw material, or shopping online. Individual and, more significantly, business generate inevitable carbon emission, which impact climate change. So we have a shared responsibility to try our best to reduce emission where possible and adopt a more environmentally friendly lifestyle. It can include switching to renewable energy instead of fossil fuel, divesting from carbon intensive activities, buying organic, taking public transport instead of driving, and so on. So, reducing emission and decarbonizing our economy are an urgent matter that should be part of every company goal. However, for that, they cannot cut down. Business can compensate for the avoidance emission through what we know as carbon offset. So carbon offset is really doing the compensation of what a company can do, reducing their footprint. So there's two different type of carbon offset: the voluntary emission reduction, and the certified emission reduction. So the voluntary are carbon provided by projects that have gained voluntary third-party approval but have not been officially certified by the Clean Development Mechanism. The certified emission reduction is the emission issued by Clean Development Mechanism to make it possible for a project to offset its emission. So this will be law compliant, and it will be very different whether you're in Canada or even in Quebec or California and the rest of US, or Europe, or any country. So those are very complicated rules to be part of this. And the Paris Agreement and the COP26 and the COP and following discussion is trying to bring the certified emission reduction to a larger span. And once we are able to do this, it means that a project anywhere in the world will be able to compensate for any emission anywhere in the world. And now we'll get to a global economy. So that is where we're heading. And by the meantime, we're trying to do it through voluntary carbon offset. So Veristera, through its Trees of Life fund, is emitting with third parties. So it's not us that will emit our own carbon offset, it's third parties. But through third parties, you'll be able to, if you go forward with investment in Trees of Life, you go forward with some of these offset that will be vetted to you. So they will belong to you, and you will be able to apply them toward your own emission. So how do you get carbon credit? So polluter can buy carbon credit from company offering carbon credit opportunity, or from investment fund. So we're going through the investment fund. And why we doing this is because, like, if you buy an offset at a fixed price instead of an investment, you'll get like an estimate of the price of that carbon offset, because the price of the carbon offset is not fixed in time. If you go toward an investment strategy, you'll put the right amount of money to generate that project, so that project will be sustainable. And then that project being sustainable first now will emit some carbon offset, and you'll reap them off. So in Trees of Life, we're not trying to get you as much carbon offset for your dollar invested. This is not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is, for each offset we emit, we want to make sure these offset will be additional, and they will be perpetual. And perpetual, it means that the carbon that we've sequestered, in 1 year or 2 years from now, will still be there in 10, 20, 50, 100 years. So that's how we valued, the carbon offset. So the carbon offset can be purchased through a market. So businesses' emission become internal cost, and they have to consider, and which is visible in their balance as long along their raw material acquisition costs. So for business, that are very advanced in those carbon offset, you'll see that they have a liability, let's say, in carbon emission, and they will buy offset to be able to have a balance sheet in terms of offset. So how much is a carbon credit? So the carbon credit will follow a strict set of standards, and the stricter the standards is, the more expensive, the carbon offset might be. And that's the value of the carbon offset. So carbon offset can be a very different set of project, but let's concentrate today for restoration projects. So conservation project and restoration project will emit very different quality of carbon offset. Conservation, as I said, will only emit carbon offset if you can prove that the forest you're trying to conserve will not be cut. And this, you can study this with, cutting trends in a forest. While restoration is much harder, because you now need to recreate a new canopy. But the value of those offsets is much higher, because protecting an existing forest is somehow hard, but restoring a new forest that didn't exist before, it's much, much, much harder. And that's why, those carbon offset we predict will have a much higher value in the future.
Interesting.
I've been modeling for a long time. Justin, do you have any question that maybe the public would have themselves?
Well, I mean, I guess the interesting part here is just sort of looking at it's interesting you mentioned the point at the end there. The carbon credits might have different values depending on how they're created, or what form they come from, whether it's reforestation or regeneration versus just saving the original forest,
conservation.
right? Call it conservation, right? Exactly. So that's kind of interesting. That I guess one of the things that, those that are watching obviously are looking at, the opportunity to participate in the Trees of Lives fund. Obviously, this is not financial advice. Do your own due diligence. We're not recommending anyone to do anything, but obviously just giving them the information. Mark can talk a little bit more about it than obviously I can, but what exactly? So let's say somebody puts money into the Trees of Lives fund. Give us like a walkthrough of what that money is going to be used for, and then how that person is going to see a financial return, or what kind of financial returns. I mean, we talked about how you're going to, through the commercialization and kind of, doing a number of different things, explain sort of what that return might look like. And then, yeah, you talk about the carbon credits. I think there's thresholds around, who actually gets carbon credits. So, the everyday person isn't just going to be handed some carbon credits. At least that's, from my understanding, not how it works. So maybe there's a couple of questions maybe you can answer very specific to the Trees of Lives fund and somebody looking to participate in this offering.
Okay. So basically, how someone is going to make money is very simple. So we're not doing tree farming. Okay, that's very important to set aside. However, the way we generate money is very similar to tree farming. It's just that we dilute this strategy within an ecosystem to make them very resilient and sustainable. But if you isolate the part of our model that is generating some commodities, some timber, some fruit trees, it's very easy. We have degraded land, we grow fruit trees, we grow timbers, and then we harvest. And the harvesting, we sell the commodities to the market. Though this market is paying us back for the commodities, and then those are generating distribution that are going back to the impact investor. That's simple as it is. And for the carbon offsetting is the natural regeneration, assisted regeneration, and conservation that will mostly generate the offset. And why we don't just do tree farming, or why we don't just do offset? That would be a good question. And the answer is, if we're only doing commodities, what we're going to try to do is produce as much commodities, even though this is not good for the nature. And if we're only producing carbon offset, we're trying to produce as much carbon offset, even though it's not financially advantageous for the local communities.
Right.
And so those two models taking apart is not sustainable. But the magic happens when you mix those two kind of model. So
Right.
when you're trying to grow natural forests along places where you grow commodities, you're generating so much money to the landholder that have right now no money to do the restoration of the land, and you can have a payback to the impact investor, and at the same time you can generate carbon offset of very high quality that is very regenerative in nature, in a sense. And now you've got like those offsets that are very high quality along with financial return. And to answer your question, if you invest like as low as $100, you're going to get your offset. It's going to be your offset. Obviously, you'll get like somehow a low number of value, because like $100 compared to, let's say we raise a $1.5 million round. $100 is obviously a small amount, but you still get your fair share of carbon offset to offset your own emission. Now, if you invest $1 million and more, and like that's more for like institutional investor, or like high hand. And now like you might generate so much offset that you cannot just offset your own emission yourself, right?
Right.
So that's how we put that threshold to be able to remarket the offset to the market.
To other people. Okay, interesting. And then what sort of returns? Obviously, what is somebody who's participating in this? What can they expect in return of their investment?
Okay, good question. So we're not going to create models that generate less than 7% return, period. So I mean, the model you saw, like depending on the model, can vary. Like can be 7%, can be 10%, can be 15%. However, we're going to let the landholder choose the model that they will choose. However, we're not going to invest in models that will generate less than 7%. So the average will be somehow 7 to 10%. And if the landholder pick models that are very lucrative, like we might end up with higher. But right now, our model, and according to what we saw in the market, we saw that within 10 years we would be able to get 7 to 10% annualized return, and over 35 years we get an internal rate of return of about 15.7%. And if you calculate the natural capital, so all the financial revenue plus the non-financial revenue, we estimate an IRR about 38.8%. So
Right.
so that's how you see that our model is generating so much value for the investor and for the planet.
Right. Interesting. Cool. Well, I know we've got a whole week here ahead of us. Is there any? Well, I want to actually shout out everyone out there. We really want you guys to ask questions, so I'm going to throw this out there today. Throughout the week while you're watching, if you have any questions, things arise, feel free to drop a question in the comments section. Mark will be sure to answer. He'll be following along, or Martin. You can tag any of them, or anyone that shows up. Obviously Denis was on there a couple of days ago. Whoever's coming on, you just mentioned a couple of people. We'll be having those guests. So excited to have guests throughout this week. But is there any final words, Mark, that you wanted to kind of say to everyone as a final shout out?
Yeah. So today,
get your units.
Today, we talk about, Veristera, how we develop biotechnology, how we develop technology, how we develop social innovation to be able to have very sustainable ecosystem. We talk about biodiversity offset. We talk about carbon offset. We talk about the quality of those offsets. And I hope, I succeeded to convince you that we want to be a company that do good things. We don't want to be a company that just do money. Money is important. We need to be profitable to exist. But we, on top of money, we want to do a lot of good things. So I hope I've been convincing you about this today. Tomorrow we're going to meet our R&D director, Guillaume Letourneau. Donc, we're going to ask him, a lot of questions and get his head around, expertise. Wednesday, we're going to keep chatting together. And Thursday, we're going to meet with Patricia Perez-Kutz, who is one of our early investor in this amazing adventure. So she's a specialist in emerging markets investment. So she's Peruvian, so she knows Peruvian market. It will be great. And Friday.
Funny story on Patricia. I'm not sure if she knows or remembers, and her name obviously quite sort of. I mean, it's a memorable type name. I actually worked with her or indirectly at AGF about 10 years ago. So
that's crazy.
I believe she was a fund manager when you sent me the email with some of the names. I kind of had to go back and look at it. Yeah, so we did. I mean, obviously didn't work directly with her. She was a fund manager on one side. I was on the other side on the sales business development. But so yeah, she was on the emerging markets for sure. So it'll be interesting to hear her thoughts. Former AGF, I guess, co-worker, if you will. So that'd be cool to have Patricia on here as well. So yeah, it's going to be a great week of who else? Sorry, you were getting into some others, right?
And the other one will be Vincent Crépin, who is our CTO. So he is the brain behind our Trees of Life platform, our Trees of Life data management platform. He's going to go through a little bit of that, and he's going to prove it. I hope so. Why we're able to do with a tech platform so much more restoration that we're normally wouldn't be able to do without the technology. So I think we'll be a passionate week, with a lot of guests, a lot of expertise, and so you can get your head around, who's Veristera and who's the brain behind that.
Perfect, awesome. Well, everyone out there, let's get our names up here. Where who are we? So I'm Justin Fox, founder and CEO of Backers, the platform on which you can raise money for your business by selling shares, equity, units in your business to everyday retail investors. Private equity meets the crypto markets, if you will. Brand new regulations came to be in about 2016 here in Ontario, across Canada. So that's Backers. I'm joined this week and every day this week and over the next few weeks by Marc-Andre Coulombe, who is the Chief of Corporate Affairs with Vertisterra. And they are they've launched the Trees of Lives Fund, which is raising capital on the Backers platform, selling partnership units. Talked a little bit about that. So Mark, again, thank you very much for joining me. Dave, whatever, we'll call this day 6 because we'll say last week was 1 through 5. Today's day 6. We'll call it something like that. But yeah, great. Everyone else, we'll see you guys again tomorrow afternoon, right?
There we go.
Perfect. Mark, any final words? Go
Please.
Leafs go.
Huh?
Go Leafs go. I was joking.
Go Leafs go.
Yeah.
Go Leafs go.
Go Leafs go. Yeah, exactly. That's why I said it. Yes.
Talk to you tomorrow, and we'll have a lot of fun this week.
Awesome. All right, everyone. See you guys again tomorrow.